Okay, grade 8s, let's carry on. We're going to call this part 2. All right, this is part 2, and it starts on page 37. Okay, John wants to buy an iPod. In a newspaper. He sees a player that regularly sells for $119.95. It's advertised at 20% off, but because he lives in British Columbia, he has to pay 5% GST and 7% PST. What will be the total cost of that John will pay? Okay, I have to say this is like the classic question for grade 8s because two things are going on here. Well, number one, you're going to have a discount, okay? You're going to have a discount. There's a sale price. You know, we're taking some money off this. We're taking 20% off. And then you're still going to have to pay tax. So like this is like, you know, quote unquote, this is like real life math. For those of you who wonder about, are we ever going to do math in real life? This is exactly what happens in real life. Yeah, you get a sales price. And then you get, like, there's a tax. So, you know, just a couple of comments here, okay? I'm going to write them in pink. So, comments. Okay. Number one, discounts are always done first. Discounts first, okay? You do those calculations first, all right? Taxes, okay, are always last. All right, so we're going to go with the discount. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So step 1 is going to be the sales price. What's the sales price? All right, I'm going to do this sort of the multi-step way. Like for some of you might understand, well, can't I just take 80%? Can I reverse the thinking here and just say the sales price is 80% of 119? Yeah, it is. It is. But let's just see, because a lot of students, what you're attracted to the numbers that you see in the problem. So what I'm saying to you is most students will want to deal with the 20% because the 80% is like you have to think of that in your head. It's an invisible number. Nowhere does it say the sales price is just simply 80% of this number. Students are likely going to want to just figure out the discount, then subtract it, and then get the sales price. And that's perfectly fine. It's a little bit longer and it's okay. Percent of a number. Grade 8s, forgive me if I get distracted because now my dog is here at school. She's been dropped off and wandering around my classroom. So 20% of $119.95. So let's just quickly translate that. That's 0.20. That's times. Don't touch the second number. It really doesn't matter if you keep the dollar sign. You know you're working in dollars. You could always just recognize the dollar sign at the end again. So what is 0.2 times 119.95? That's equal to $23. Okay. So that's what you're going to subtract. Okay, that's the discount or the savings. Okay, so let's take $119.95 and let's subtract $23.99. Okay, so 119.95 minus 23.99. 95.96. Okay, $95.96. Okay, that's a 9. $95.96. Okay, so that part is done. Now, step 2. I'll do it in black. So step 2 would be, what's the final price? Final price including, okay, that's an abbreviation for including. You see it everywhere in advertising, including taxes. All right, now this is where I'm going to use my shortcut, okay? And I'll show you what I mean here. So the GST is equal to 5%. Is 5%. The PST is 7% here. Yeah, 7%. Sometimes they're 8, sometimes they're 7. And so together that makes the 12%. Now, not only am I going to use this shortcut here, where I just add all the taxes, but I'm going to go to what I showed you in a previous example. So the final price is going to be 112% of the sales price. Now, it is a sales price, not the discount, or not the original price up here of 119. We're going to take this number here, okay? Now, just quickly again, 5 and 7 makes our 12%, and then this 100%, this idea of using the 100%, 100% to a decimal is 1. It's just 1.00. So what this happens is the sales price is $95.96. What happens when we multiply $95.96 to 1? This will just bounce off the 1 and become $95.96, and then the 12% here, so the 100% and the 12% would take care of the tax. The 100% is the sales price. It's represented by the number 1. So $95.96 times 1 is $95.96, and then 12% of this number. It'll all do it in one step. So one quick step. All right? Now, if you don't like doing this way, just do 12% of the sales price, find out what the taxes are, and then add it on. Using 112% does this all in one step. Let's translate. 1.12 of means times. And what is the sales price? It's $95.96. So let's take that answer. Okay, so my calculator can take the answer and multiply that by 1.12. 107, and this is where you would round. Decimals, pardon me, money, I meant to say money, is always 2 decimal places. So I'll just write the price out and you'll see here. I'm going to do it in pencil. Actually, I'll do some in pen and some in pencil just to show the point I'm making. 107.4, now watch, 752. Money is always cut off at 2 decimal places. So this next digit, the 3rd decimal place, determines whether you round up or round down, okay? This is not like the previous question we talked about persons, and I said you must round down, you must break the rounding rules. This is money. Money is different from persons. You can have a fractional amount. So I'm going to write over that 7, okay? Because the 5 will force you to round up. And so the final answer is John will pay $107.48. Okay? That's the final answer there. Okay, so we finished the examples. Now we're actually on to the practice questions. A jacket costs $125 and is on sale for 30% off. How much would you pay for the jacket before the tax? And then after a tax. So basically, the practice problem is basically broken down step 1 into step 2. Let's just show that. Step 1, step 2. And just called it, sub question A, sub question B. But it's a repeat of the previous example. All right, so let's not take too much time here. 30% of $125. Okay, so that's 0.30 times 125. Let's figure out what that is. $37.50. Okay, so what did we just find out? We found out the savings. $37.50 is the savings, meaning we have to calculate the sales price. Sales price is going to be the regular price. Okay, so that's the regular, subtract $37.50. Now, a little nod to grades 1 to 6, right? You should line up your decimals. Let's pretend you didn't have the calculator. Then you introduce your invisible zeros. Do you see that my decimal points are lined up? So this is the discount. I'm going to abbreviate that to DISC. And let's just see what the calculation is. 125 minus 3750. Okay, 87.5. And then question A is done. Okay, you would pay a sentence, grade 8s. Always end with the sentence. You would pay $87.50. Now, I'm just going to keep going. I won't break this recording up for this question. After tax of 5%. Okay. I'll do it two ways just to prove once again that you're going to get the same answer. So what is 5% of $87.50? This is 0.05. Okay. So it's 5% is 5 over 100. 0.05 times 87.50. Okay, that's equal to, so let's take our previous answer, times it by 0.5. $4. Do round here. I know I had advice about not rounding in the middle of a question, but I'm going to ask you to ignore that advice. That's more of a science high school thing. Let's do $47.38. So 40, sorry, did I say 47? $4. $4.38. Okay. So now we got to add. See, when you do just the 5%, you always need two steps. The first step is 5% of this number. Get that number, and then now you need to add it. The quick way does all of this in one step. 8, 8, 1. Carry that one. I get $91.88. Let's compare it to the sort of the quick way. All right. The quick way is just going to say, when you pay 5% GST, you're going to pay 105% of the last price, whether it's a regular price, sales price, whatever it is. The point is, once you add a tax, you're paying 1.05 times, in this case, 87.50. Let's see what that works out. I'm going to clear the screen here. What is 1.05 times 87.50? Okay, so look at that. If I rounded that up, what do I get? You bet, I get $91.88. Okay, so you would pay a final price of 91. I was looking at the last answer there. $91.88. Box that answer, and done. Okay, so finally we get maybe a slightly different version where the question is asking you to leave a tip. Your bill at a restaurant comes to $83.54. You want to leave a tip of 18%. That's pretty generous. I hope you got good service. So how much of a tip would you leave? Okay. Well, then this is where you actually, you're going to go and do it sort of the regular way. In other words, you need to find out percent of a number, 18% in this case. 18% of 83.54. Okay, what does that equal to? Well, translate. All right. Now, that's equal to 0.18 times 83.54. $15, and again, the 4 decimal places is crazy because we only go to the second decimal place when it's money. So this is 15.04. The 7 demands that you round that 3 up to a 4. So 15.04. Now that is the answer. You don't have to add it yet because you got to go and read your question, grade 8s, and it says, how much of a tip would you leave? Okay? It didn't ask you, what's the total bill before tax? It didn't ask you, how much are you leaving in total with including the bill? No, it's specifically saying how much of a tip would you leave? So that is the answer. So $15.04. The tip comes to $15.04. Okay, there's our sentence. How much GST would you pay on the original bill? How much GST? Okay. Now, see again, I can't do my quick method. I'm not going to do 1.05 because it's now specifically asking how much GST. It didn't say, what's the final amount, okay? So how much GST would you pay? So 5% of $83, okay, and 54 cents. Okay, let's find out what that number is. So GST, and like when you do a tax and you do a tip, they're done separately, completely separate. You don't pay tax on a tip, so they are totally separate calculations from each other. 83 0.54. Okay, so again, rounding, money only goes to 2 decimal places, so 4.18. The 7 demands that this 7 gets rounded up. So you would pay $4.18. Okay, so the GST equals $4.18. I would consider that a sufficient sentence. Okay, now you get the final total. Now listen, GST and tips are always done separately. So then they're added separately. We're all added together, right? You got to find out what the total bill is, okay? So this is why restaurants can get expensive, because not only, like nowadays, the food is expensive, it's proper, etiquette to leave a tip, maybe not that much, but, and then you're gonna pay taxes. So this is just the starting point. Assuming you don't have a gift card or a coupon, or there's no daily specials, like this is how the money adds up. You start with your bill, waiter hands you your bill, you determine the tip and the GST, but these have nothing to do with each other. So, in other words, you do it like this. It's the bill plus the tip plus the GST. Okay? So, what does that look like? Okay, it's $83.54. Okay, plus $15.04 plus $4.18. Okay, you guys will have a calculator for all of this. So let's clear that out. 83.54 plus. So you ended up paying $102.76. Okay. So I'll just write it here. The final total would be $102.76. Okay. Now, just to illustrate this in terms of like a flow chart. Okay. So this is for restaurants. You get a bill. Okay, you get your restaurant bill. All right. And then what you do is like it's almost like it happens at the same time. You figure out a tip based on the bill, and you figure out the GST based on the bill. Trying to do it. Okay? And then everything comes together. You add the tip, you add the GST, you add the bill, you add these 3 things, and then you get the final total. Okay? All I'm saying is don't do this. Don't get the bill, figure out the tip, add them together, and then find out the tax. No, you never put tax on the tip. So just figure them out. Just pretend that they happen at the same time, separately. One has nothing to do with the other, okay? All right. Okay, so question 3, not too difficult or challenging. There is some minor, sort of preliminary steps, like steps you have to do at the beginning here. But, it's a pretty straightforward tax question. I will say again, so I'm going to grab pink for this. So, just a comment here. So, yes, go ahead and add your taxes. Okay, so it says calculate the following bill. So you can just say 5% plus 8% is equal to 13%. Okay, sorry, sometimes I write 13 like the letter B. 13%. All right. So let's see what that looks like. All right. Now, first of all, you have 4 binders, and the word each is powerful here. Like, don't gloss over that word. Okay, don't just rush past that word. If they're $2.25 each, then you have a little minor calculation to do here first. Now, of course, you can use your calculator, but I just know that that's going to be $9 because 4 times 2 is 8, and when you have 4 quarters, 4 coins, 25 cents, that adds up to the extra $1. So I know this is going to be $9. All right. We're only buying 1 geometry set, so that can stay at $1.65. Okay, and again, if you're adding these by hands, line up your decimal. Okay, line up your decimal, $9. Put your invisible zeros in. And we're only buying 1 of these, so it's 10.35. Okay, so nevertheless, you do have a calculator. So let's add all of these up. Okay, so 9 plus $1.65 plus $10.35. Okay, well that worked out nicely. That ended up being exactly $21. Okay, write that in black ink, $21. All right, so your bill before, when you get to the till, when the cashier is going to check out or self-check out, whatever, your subtotal is $21. Now let's find out your total bill, including tax. Okay, total bill, including tax. Okay, now this is where I'm going to use my shortcut method. So what am I paying? I'm paying 100% of this and the 13%. So my bill is going to be 113% of 21. Okay, and I can use this shortcut because it's not saying like here, how much GST would you pay, and then I have to literally figure out what 5% is, or it didn't ask me what's the actual amount of PST. It just says calculate the following bill. So I'm going to use my quick method, 1.13 times 21. Okay, so answer, so times, I'll take my answer, times 1.13. $23.73. That's my final bill. 73 cents. Okay, so the total bill is $23. Okay. Okay, so I'm tempted, and I will do this last question again in two different ways. One is the two-step way, and the other one is the quick way, because it asks, this all comes down to what the question is asking. What would the new population be? So listen what it's asking. A city has a population of 12,342. If the population increased by 2.4% in 1 year, what would the new population be? So it didn't ask us how many persons did it increase by, where we would have to actually figure out this, we'd have to do it in steps. It just said, what's the new population? But let's see what this looks like. Okay, let's do it the sort of what I call the regular way, where you've broken it down into steps. You're doing percent of a number, just like you're doing for virtually all these questions. What is 2.4% of 12,342? Okay, well, let's translate that. Now again, don't run into trouble just because your percent has a decimal. This is not a decimal number. This is not like quote unquote a regular number. This is a percentage. You can tell it's got the percent sign. So that means literally just rewrite the number. Don't start moving decimals yet. Divide by 100. Okay, now that if you take the time, grade 8s, to write it as a fraction, you can say 1, 0, 2 zeros equals 1, 2. 0.024. So 0.024. Now, you have a calculator. So if you don't remember how many decimal places to bounce, literally just do 2.4%. This is the definition of 2.4%, is to put 2.4 divided by 100. Now that's your real decimal. Just because the decimal appears in the percent doesn't make it a decimal. The percent sign is powerful, and some of you need to quit ignoring it. The percent sign means something. It means 2.4, put it over 100, do the division, now you get 0.024. Okay, 12,342. Okay, so my last answer is saved. I'll just times that by 12,342. Okay, we can't have a partial person, and we're going to round down anyways because it happens to fall in normal rounding rules, but it's equal to 296 people. Okay, I'm going to abbreviate like a teenager there. And it's 296 people. Is that the new population? No, it's how much it increased by. So the population went up by a plus 296. So in other words, the new population, okay, yes, I'm going to abbreviate that. The new population is equal to 12,342 plus 296. Okay, 8, 13, 1, 1. There we go, 4, 2, 6. Okay, new population is 12,638. Now, watch this. So we're going to take 100% of the old population, and we're going to add, notice I put in a decimal there. Why? Because I need a decimal, because the increase is 2.4%. So why can't we just calculate 102.4% of the population? 102.4% of 12,342. Now look, you're still punting the decimal 2 places to the left. What is this as a decimal number? It's 1.024 times 12,342. Let's see what that works out to be. 1.024. Now, 1.024, not 1.24. It didn't increase by 24%. It increased by 2.4%. That zero is critical. Do not ignore that placeholder 0. This is 102.4%, written as a decimal, times 12,342. Look at that. Same answer. It's not shocking, right? It's not shocking. It is the same answer when you round. Okay? I already put a sentence here, so there you go. Okay, I'm going to call this the end of part 2, and then I'll do the last 2 pages as part 3.